right, folks. Looks like we're fully loaded with about 50 or so people so far. I want to welcome everyone to our Economic Alliance, Snohomish County coffee chat. So I actually have my coffee right here. And at some point, we're going to find out how many of you actually have some coffee. Oh, I see a few of you. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Gary Clark, President and CEO of Economic Alliance, Snohomish County, and I'm here to bring you another awesome coffee chat. And before we get started though, let's talk about a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce our guests. So we have the opportunity to engage everyone on the chat below. So remember to do that. I see some of you have already started to do that. Also, try to keep your noise level down so that we can actually hear our wonderful guests speak. And maybe at the end, ask as many questions, or during, ask as many questions as possible. It is totally awesome to have an engaging group and find out as much information as we can. Good morning, everyone. So with that being said, first and foremost, I'd like to announce that we have Kathy Coffee here. Kathy is a convener of People for the Greater Good, TEDx speaker, igniter of passion, authenticity, and others. She also happens to be the executive director of Leadership Snohomish County, a role she has served in for 7 years. That's right, dedication there. LSC's mission is LSC builds a community of authentic leaders, providing programs that center equity and foster leadership skills for life. Kathy values her role with the organization and has passion for leadership and community. So thank you, Kathy, for being here. We also have another guest speaker, and they're going to tag team this effort for us today. And this is Dr. Gregory Price. Now, he has as well an interesting story. Greg is the director of the program for the doctorate program of business administration at City University of Seattle. He has 13 years experience in instructing students in leadership and business courses. But in private industry, he served 4 years as superintendent abroad of a floating processor in the Aleutian Islands. That is amazing, right? I don't know if anyone has ever experienced that before, Dr. Price. But 6 years as a director of training organization in Tokyo, Japan, and 27 years as co-publisher for Outdoors Northwest magazine, a Seattle-based outdoor recreational magazine. Folks, I welcome you to this coffee chat with these amazing speakers. Please take it away.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Gary. Appreciate that. And looking forward to really getting going on our speaking engagement with all of you today. And, Kathy is going to, she's loading up a few slides right now, and we're going to use them as prompts. But really, if you have questions, we really want you to, to post them in the chat. Kind of move that direction, but we're going to really tag team. Kathy and I are going to tag team and really have that conversation going, and all of you are going to be a part of that. So we're looking forward to this. Mute. Kathy, mute.
I'm working on it. Okay, so thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to be here with Greg. We haven't got to show up in the same place in a long time, and doing it virtually is just as good sometimes when you can't quite manage to do it in person. And I've always respected his work and the work that CityU does to also bring leaders to the next level. We're really good at helping leaders know their space, know what Snohomish County is, breaking down the barriers between government, nonprofit, and business. But that what's next is really where CityU excels in taking leaders to the next level. So awesome to be here with you. We thought we would start with just acknowledging that these are really uncertain times. We've had to all show up in a way that we've never had to show up before. And whether it's COVID-19, a race pandemic, or really, some will say the word collapse might be strong for identifying our systems, but really, I have to say that as from my perspective, COVID has really shined a light on all of our systems. And we've been able to see not only what doesn't work, but we've been able to see what works. And I think that we are in a unprecedented time to get to make adjustments on how we move forward to have changes in our community. This is just a quote that I like. When we first started with the new normal, I was like, oh, I just can't hear that again. I do not want to hear new normal. And the new word now seems to be pivot. We're going to pivot and do things. So every now and then I have a word where I'm like, oh, I just can't hear that anymore. And so new normal in this, you know, we will never go back to normal. Normal never was. And really for all of us, what in your personal life, what is normal there? You know, it's so Sonia goes on to say our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not learn to return, but we are given new opportunities to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. Thanks, Nathan. Woot woot. And so I hold that up. We'll make this available afterwards, but her work is important, and I like where that comes from. Greg and I would like to start now by asking you, you have the chance to open your microphones, and we would just like to hear, so we assure that we address everything you're thinking about. What are your top challenges today? And what would you like to walk away with? Why did you choose to show up at 8:30 in the morning to talk about leading in uncertain times, and how can we support you? So I'd love to hear what you're looking to get from the day, and then we'll move forward from there.
I know one of the things that we've been working with our team, our leadership team at Pure Clean Carpet Cleaning and Pure Dry Restoration, and also at home with my relationship with my wife too, is we are very, very good at giving to everybody else, trying to keep our motivation, our joy, our spirit, all of that for our extensive team. And my wife and I were talking about last night, we need to make darn sure that we're filling ourselves up, because we can't give anything away if we're empty ourselves. And that emptiness at times, you know, can breed frustration, resentment, just grumpiness and negativity with the people that we love the most. So that was the poignant thing that came to me. And I think I'd love to hear more about that, some tips and tricks that you have, or anybody else's experience too.
Powerful. Thanks, Nathan.
Hi, my name is Kimber Behrens, and I'm with the Alzheimer's Association. So I lead in a little bit different of a way. I'm not on a leadership team per se, but I lead volunteers for the Walk to End Alzheimer's in 3 different communities. And I guess my top challenges is just keeping those volunteers engaged and inspired through this pandemic, because everyone has things going on in their personal life outside of work already. And so getting people inspired to still volunteer and help with this event, I guess that's one of my top challenges right now, and recruiting new volunteers as well. It was easier when we were in person and able to meet people face to face. We're not able to do that right now.
Yep.
Any thoughts from others? And we'll have places, we'll be interactive throughout the time, but anyone else want to share what brought you here this morning? Aside from support for the Economic Alliance and all the great work they do to keep us connected in the community.
So this is Greg. You know, we have two, staying connected in a remote world, and you know, keeping people engaged. It's those two topics could, you know, if we just kind of talked about those for a little bit while others are kind of thinking about what they might uh, like to contribute, or maybe things come up as we're talking. But you know, this idea of giving to everyone, you know, the third one here, that one actually falls, you know, I believe it falls into a place of understanding what balance is. And it's you know, uncertainty is not something that we're experiencing today or within the past year. Uncertainty in business has been with us forever. It's just a different kind of uncertainty that we're all experiencing. This particular uncertainty is challenging because we don't have anything that we've experienced in the past, if you will. I can say this about you know, not being able to go anywhere, but when I was in Alaska working on those ships, boy, I tell you what, we didn't get to go anywhere. And so, what did we do to actually you know, engage others? You know, have personal space and those kinds of things. What I did is I just kind of I created boundaries. And I learned how to do that by knowing when to work, knowing when to just disengage from people and have me time for reflection. And reflection is a huge component of actually being able to center yourself. Uh, you know, I don't do yoga, but I know that yoga is one of those activities that really helps individuals to center themselves. And Kathy, I believe, don't you do yoga?
I meditate.
That's
My body needs to do yoga, but my head is doing meditation, and hopefully my body will do yoga sometime this year.
meditation
But,
is another one. That's a
but
great one.
it is, and I'm gonna I want to. I think it's 2 slides away from here. I just want to real quickly, like, talking leadership, like what leadership Snohomish County defines is engaging yourself in others, which is what you're talking about. How do we engage others to align the factors necessary to thrive? And I love the word thrive because it describes your team. It describes a business. It is an indicator of success. And one of the things we're talking about today is, like, not focusing on predicting the future, but how do we thrive in these situations the way we are now. And to just quickly detour and go follow what Greg said and address a little what Nathan was talking about. Brene Brown tends to be the premier leadership podcast, book writer, guru in our world today. And I love her framing, but she has this teaching, and she calls it Effing First Times. And it really ties in so well to this pandemic and how we do exactly what Nathan was talking about, which is that self-care piece. And one of the things we need to do is just to name that this is hard. This is overwhelming. It's and one thing I'm really cautionary with is the word overwhelm. I've never seen it more prevalent in our world. We're being asked to be parents and teachers and employees and 27 other things in the world. And I tend to say I have overwhelm instead of saying I am overwhelmed, because just labeling myself as being overwhelmed is it's a burden. But to treat it like I have overwhelm means it's kind of walking beside me, and I can see there's a lot going on, but it also helps me feel like I can do something about it. And that doing something about it is giving it perspective. You know, with Greg's conversation about boundaries. You know, if there are so many things that I have on my calendar, and honestly, no one's going to die if we don't meet. And I'm blessed not to be in you know, healthcare or to have a job. You know, I see the Everett PD here. They don't have the freedom not to do some things. Their boundaries have to be more personal than within their job, but just giving so much of what we tend to think is so important. You know, like yesterday I needed to go to the store, but I didn't make it, and you know, I had dinner, I was okay. You know, I there's so many things I think I have to do, so that dovetails in with, you know, just doing a reality check on what you're expecting from yourself and adjusting your expectations, and then build in rest and recovery time. My partner's a general contractor, and just finished a 2-month job, and he had to get to the next one. He was 3 days late, and I'm like, take the week off, let your body rest. And the people aren't going to care if you start the job on Monday. And he was like, sure, oh no, I told them it was, you know, I can't do that. And he called and he said, I'll be there Monday. And they're like, great, thank you for letting us know. We appreciate that you're fully present where you're at. And he's taking some days to build in rest and recovery time, because none of us can be our best selves if we don't do that. And half of what we tell ourselves is critical. Likely we've made a story up in my head and in our heads. And often I ask myself, like, whether it's with a coworker, someone I'm managing, or I'll ask someone I'm managing, what story are you telling yourself? With my partner, if there's a disagreement, what story am I telling? And half the time it's something that isn't quite accurate. And then the last piece is just staying in fit condition. Even if it's walking every day, even, you know, I ended up getting a Fitbit in these times because I'm sitting at my desk all day, and I go up and down the stairs every hour when it tells me I've got to get those 250 steps in, just to get up and move. And everything about our mental health, it doesn't mean you've got to be a gym rat. It doesn't mean you've got to, you know, like totally fixate on losing 30 pounds. It just means you got to move, and it helps your health. So, and then there's just a real quick, like, what's needed. And right now, I think we all need to be willing to be vulnerable. It takes courage to speak our mind, to show up, and to say that it's hard. And then that centering that Greg's talking about with meditation or yoga, or really just stopping, and to align your heart and head. And then you know, tenacity, we just get up and do it again. And then the next day it won't be as hard to get up, you know, it's just temporary. And then we've just all got to think out of the box. So, oh, I talked a lot, Greg. I'll pass it over to you.
No, all that is just, you know, very, very good. Good for, you know, people to hear and to understand. As you were talking, some of the pieces that I thought individuals might like to understand is, as a leader, I always very much enjoy individuals trying to become the best themselves. And to become the best themselves, they need to understand themselves first before they can go out and actually help other people. So when we look at ourselves, we want to try to identify the type of people we are. And I know that that sounds really easy to do if we haven't done it. So to really look and reflect upon the individual, you know, when we look at work and we look at where we work, it's in our homes now. And this is, you know, I'll tell you, the first 6 months, I very much enjoyed this. But the things that I'm missing now are the you know, the creativity that I get with people sitting in front of them. I didn't think I would miss that, but I actually really do. But to understand the different kinds of people we are with regard to work and this life balance idea is some people are what we call separators. This is where they commit to tasks and they do work here and then they play here, and they are very much separating those ideas. Then there are people that are integrators, and integrators are those individuals that will do a task and then do something at home, and wash some clothes, and then they'll do some more work, and then they'll go help the kid with their homework, or something like that. And then there might be people that are considered to be cyclers. You switch back and forth between different periods of different things that you do. So you cycle in for a couple of hours here, you cycle over here for a couple of hours. Just know the type of individual that you are, and you'll be able to help yourself to satisfy what's going on in the mind. There are those that are work firsters, and then there are those that are family firsters. And so just understand those pieces about yourself. And I think that it would help you to understand the mental state that you have and how to wake up every single day and build yourself your patterns. There were some.
Which one are you, Greg?
You know what? I'm actually the work firster, but I'm also very high boundary control.
Mm. I'm an integrator, I think.
Are you? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the high boundary control people, they really just set their focus on what they're doing. Then there's the mid boundary, and then you have the low boundary. And I think you can kind of get the idea of the different kinds of people that there are. So if you're a low boundary, and then if you're like a family firster, you're probably doing, you may very well think that your boss is watching you, for example, right? And that is probably a new type of conversation that we should be having. And this is how can we as leaders integrate what it is that we're doing for our employees who are at home? And this gets into the idea that somebody brought up about staying connected in the remote world, as well as the keeping volunteers engaged. And just as a transition into those two ideas, I have heard that the more that you communicate now, well, let's put it this way. When you used to go to work, you would, you'd run into people, or you'd take the time to go say hi or do those kinds of things. It's actually no different now. You do want to still do that, even though you can't physically be in front of people. So give people a call, whether it's the telephone, a quick Zoom, say hello, but over communicate is the best way to achieve those motivations and recognitions, because people, your employees, need to be recognized for what they do. And as leaders, that's what you want to try to accomplish.
And I think that's a perfect point with the keeping your volunteers and engaging your volunteers. Acknowledgement and just picking up the phone. Thank you. I see you. I see what you've done. I appreciate what you've done. And right now we feel less seen than we have in a long time. And I know I personally am overwhelmed by the ways that you can communicate with me. Someone will reach out to me on LinkedIn. Someone else will send me a Facebook message. Then I'll have a text on which phone. I've got a work phone and a personal phone. And then and then there's email and Outlook Teams. And it's there's so many ways, and we have this almost expectation that, especially with text, that people will get right back to you. And that's where I think having your boundaries around when you're going to do your communication, letting people know, like I will check at 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock every day. Not letting all those messages and the ways people can communicate you eat your whole day up. Because I know that it can, by the end of the day, you're like, what'd you do today? Well, I checked email and I answered them, and then I set some appointments that fill my calendar up. And I read something interesting about Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, how they each have fairly open calendars because they have a lot of a high degree of discernment around what they say yes to around their actual meeting times. And I think oftentimes we meet to for a variety of reasons, but there may be easier ways that are more gentle on our calendar. But picking up the phone and telling somebody that they're valued and you see them, you can't beat it. And I think for volunteer recruitment, it also starts with those people, because right now the way I'm going to grow my volunteer base is somebody that's already volunteering, that's having a positive experience, that wants to bring on their friend, their sister, their alumni classmate, so.
There were some really excellent comments in the chat area. And Yvette asked a question directed towards me about wondering if certain jobs and professional duties and positions require different kinds of boundary relationships. And, the short answer is yes. But of course, to truly answer that, it would be, more information would be needed to really understand the direction of what it is that you're looking to have answered there, and how we can answer that in a very direct sort of way. There was something that Terry said in here with regard to receiving some Chicago deep dish pizza and some cookies. And that's actually a really strong way for leaders to reach out to their employees. Just send gifts to their home. I mean, Amazon is there every day anyway, right? Give them more work. But there is this idea that I want to bring forward. And if you are a leader and you have individuals that report to you, you might wonder, really, what is the best way? Some of these ideas that I've shared that are on the chat screen, those are great ideas. There is a term considered allyship. And, how do we become an ally, right? How do we do this? And it's really a matter of what it is that we've talked about thus far. It's reaching out, it's being who you need to be for others. And this is servant leadership. And servant leadership is, and I'm sure that most of all of you know what this is all about. It's serving everyone around you in the best capacity that you can possibly do for them. But then you might ask that question, well, what about me? Well, servant leadership and servant leaders, they have all of that within them already. They know who they are, they know their boundaries, they know what they can give, and that's what they do. So servant leadership is about allyship. And this is something that we want to try to encourage leaders to do, is to build allies, and not only within your own department, but now, because we can't really go to these other departments, we need to build integration with all departments, so we understand what it is that each department is doing, and the cross-pollination of ideas. So maybe there's other questions that that people are asking as well. Let's see. Yeah, phone calls to check in. Very good.
And I just put some questions up that Greg and I were thinking of. We want to know, like, what are you facing as a business owner? We've talked a little about the remote work and managing others, inequities that have been brought to light during COVID. And then what do we keep and what do we let go of? Are there some of these questions that resonate with you that you'd like to talk about?
May I make a comment?
You may.
Okay, so regarding inequities, because Fairfield Residential has 10 independent senior affordable properties in that greater Seattle area, you know, it's just become more obvious that not all lower income seniors can afford internet. Not all, you know, older seniors have laptops or computers or iPads, and we come across seniors who have cell phones, but they really don't know how to maximize their usefulness. And I think it's just, how do we get the word out? You know, you do your best to try to get the word out, but in these times of isolation, it's really hard to reach that population. And I'm sure there are other people that are not seniors that are, you know, having the same difficulties.
I so value hearing that. We had a oftentimes, definitely the inequities have been brought to light around racial inequity, but there have been so many socioeconomic inequities for those that aren't working, for seniors, like Terry just brought up. And then we had a conversation last month looking at the challenges within K through 20 schools right now. And with the same concerns on the other end of the spectrum that Terry's bringing up with seniors, it was fascinating to have Darrington, Everett, Edmonds, Marysville, just like all county representation there. And Darrington has trouble with their kids even being able to access broadband to be able to do a lot of their teaching. And then there's a lot of individuals that don't have access to the computers, don't have the family support to be able to do that. And have you had notices, Greg, about how to get the word out around inequities and just bring that to individuals' attentions?
You know, that's such a challenging question. The one experience that I have, and it may not directly relate to the question that's out there, but my mother is in a senior's home. She's 98 right now. And this home has done a fabulous job of keeping everyone healthy, everyone safe. And what they do for activities is they actually go from room to room, and they allow, let's see, they schedule time with families, and they bring the computer, and we can then Skype with our mother. And you know, a good 30 minutes of time is just a fabulous way to engage with those that you love. But see, that the idea that I'm talking about there, if it's possible for these other elderly individuals that may not be, they're kind of in that tween space where they don't have, you know, they live alone, but they don't have all the resources available to someone who's living in a you know, a care facility type of place. They might have a concierge sort of an arrangement where maybe that could be something brought up to maybe even the owners of the building, to do something that where you can, where the building can direct a schedule and have a common area where individuals go in individually and not as a group, of course, but to have time to work with the individual, to talk with the family member that they might want to talk to. There's a lot of different creative things going on out there. That might be one of them.
I also see in the chat, and thanks to Trish for acknowledging how Snow Owl Library supports our community and across the board. And I have always had so much respect for, you talk about institutions that manage to be creative in how they reinvent themselves to remain relevant and important in our times. And libraries show up, and Snow Isle has done the most amazing job of meeting our community needs. And you look, like before internet, you know, we went to the library and we got books. And now the library has found a lot of ways to teach me that Google search isn't always the answer, that, you know, there's so many more tools. And then when it comes to being able, for all of you that are parents with small kids at home, the story times, the online resources, everything that they have from small kids to seniors, and then really addressing the needs of those who oftentimes do not have shelter, and also who don't have access to technology. So woohoo, Snow Isle.
Very true. Very true.
So go ahead.
There was some discussion with regard to DEI as well, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, you know, maybe there's something specific that someone wants to ask about that, you know, bring up in sort of a conversation that we can have here.
Dr. Price, I'm not sure who brought that question up, but or that thought up, but my question would probably be, where are the opportunities through that work because of all the activities that have created this fevered pitch of needs and services and requirements, and kind of shining a bright light on where we are with these things. Where are the opportunities that you see through this work?
So,
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
actually, Kathy, why don't you go ahead? I interrupted you twice now. So.
Oh, no, I'm all good. I'll take that as a cue to just kind of stand on my own little platform here for leadership Snohomish County, because we have assured that equity is part of what we embody and consider to be important as leaders. And leadership, as we frame it, is not a title. All of us are leaders. You can be leading in your family, you can be leading in your community. You do not have to be a CEO, a vice president, or have a lot of letters after your name to be a leader. And we started 5 years ago on April 30th. We're having Step Up again, which is a racial equity conference to meet everybody where they're at on this journey. You can be steeped in the work, or you can be curious. And we have last year we had 800 people attend, and we choose to be the organization, or a organization, that addresses this in a large way in our community, because I believe that it's a nonpartisan issue. There's so many things that get charged with left, right, red, blue, and equity is not a blue issue. You know, we choose to do this in a nonpartisan, non-shaming way, because I've seen a lot of white people need to be the ones doing this work, and it's hard for white people to show up. It's hard for white people not to feel. Some people will feel shame or blame when it's really just history. And we try to do work around that at Step Up. We also make that free and remove all barriers to access. Snow Isle is also a sponsor for that. Primera, we have a lot of support to make that event happen, to offset any barriers. There is a cost for, but if you can't get in, there you will be allowed in. And so we also have a 5-month leadership for racial equity cohort. And that is a program that allows you to build a network of support on and learn about systems, learn about bias, learn about privilege, and learn about how to help eliminate the systemic, and just notice and start to change systemic issues in our community. So I encourage you to look at Step Up to Attend, and for the Leadership for Racial Equity for your company. We have a lot of companies that are starting, their HR people send people, and then they're sending extra people, and we have scholarships for that too. So
Yeah, very good. So this past about 4 months ago, I created a course in my program, and it is a organizational culture and identity course. And and the students are now engaging in that course. And what I do is I get students to look under the hood, if you will. And so we look at governance, because I believe governance has a large role to play in how we can adjust the systemic pieces that we have in place today. And I'm not an advocate for evangelicalism, where we get people out there and start, rah rah, let's go. But what we do is we start identifying relevant opportunities. And it's not to say that this company is doing this and it seems to work over there, so let's bring that idea into our company. It's actually looking at your own organization and understanding what does work, what doesn't work, and looking at the culture of the organization to see where you could make conversations, where you can start to make adjustments, and little adjustments add up to large adjustments over time. So it's just the little steps that we take, and the little steps will eventually be big impact pieces that you can do. There's also this idea of elevate equity. And this is where leaders of the organization must understand that they don't have an equitable organization. They just, it's everywhere. But they have to understand that it is true. And then they have to look at it in terms of, well, how can we start this conversation? Let's just begin. And then, and I have to say this too, because there's so much going on in my doctoral program, where this idea of equity is gaining such an interest with my students. They get into their dissertation. Actually, they get into their capstone before their dissertation, and they need to work with organizations to be able to come up with to do the research, to bring in ideas and possible solutions, and this to the organization. And so I'm going to put that plug out there. If anybody has an organization where they might consider a student to come in and kind of dig around a little bit and do some research on their own and bring some ideas on how to get started. That's something that I've had students ask me, Dr. Price, are there organizations that you know of that would like to have me as a student come in and help them? And that's certainly something that is an open idea. How would you convey this to a business and its ROI and bottom line? Yes. Wow. Now, see, that's actually a very good doctoral research question. We have students who are trying to understand the ROI to diversity, and there are very limited peer-reviewed research right now on that idea. It's recognized that having a diverse board, for example, or having a diverse workforce actually increases productivity and the bottom line, but there isn't. It's kind of like common knowledge that would work, but there isn't any there's very little peer-reviewed research associated with that, which is fascinating. And I know that that's going to change in the next couple of years.
And I'd like to just invite each of you to kind of open up and think about conversations that you have when you speak with someone who doesn't think like you do, who doesn't come from where you come from. And even if it's, you know, Greg was talking about his travels earlier, or Gary's been to DC, lived in DC and Nebraska. Anybody who thinks differently, has a different perspective than you do, I believe makes the workplace and your company better. And what we have to do is learn how not to reach out to people. Like when I run ads, I can't run ads in all the things that I read, because I'm trying to reach audiences that don't look like me. And that means that I might have to work a little harder on how I advertise, how I recruit, what communities I reach into. And it's not always easy, but the benefit comes in that your company, your board, your organization will benefit every time just from being able to have diverse thinking and new ideas on how to move forward. And there's that saying that, you know, what is it, when you the same thing over and over equals insanity. And a lot of times, you know, it's my thinking that got here, and I need to open up to other thinkings. So that's one answer on my end.
There's some ideas, you know, to kind of start this idea of DEI in your organization. If you were to take on some things yourself and you wanted to kind of approach this, you could just start mapping out your organization and see what the networks look like across boundaries, right? And you could do that at different levels. I always like to look at an organization at in 3 different levels. That is the leading the organization. The bottom one is leading self, and then the middle one would be leading others. And if you were to map an organization to look at who is doing what, where, at those different levels, and what opportunity, and you expand that, right, to what opportunities are afforded to each of those different levels, that would be something to begin with in terms of DEI. And DEI, it can go down this path of how is the organization, let me say it this way, what opportunities does the organization provide in terms of mentoring, coaching, those kinds of things. I do mentoring at City University for some individuals just to help them understand how to be better processes of work, how to organize their time and manage their time better. These kinds of individuals are like, you know, and I know, you know, some of you would know this, but they are the squirrel type, right? But they have tremendous ideas and they get out there with their ideas, but they want to be able to be productive. And, you know, you can't have so many different things going on in your organization in your head to help the organization become what it wants to be. So coaching, mentoring, those kinds of things are actually really strong steps that you could take.
We've got about 10 minutes left. So there were just a couple pieces, and one piece for me with equity work is, and everything is just normalizing this discomfort. It's new for me. The people I ask for support, and this is one time that I need to have a support system of white people to help me with my whiteness and how I show up in the world, not reaching out, asking BIPOC individuals to share their experience and help me. It's my responsibility. Yep. Some of this, and this is just in general with uncertain times, you know, choose courage over comfort. Be new at something. You know, I am taking a drawing class, and it's a self-care thing. It's teaching me how to live out of my brain a little bit, and And I need something a little different because I have workaholic tendencies. Don't tell anybody. And
Oh no, it's out.
I know. I think some people might know. And then choose to learn instead of know. And one thing I'm big on is learning and listening. You know, my three big things when I show up are showing up in love, showing up to listen to what other people say, and that goes with back to Kimber and volunteers and not knowing other people's stories. You have no idea what happened before anybody walked out of the house this morning or walked into their Zoom screen. And the last one, I don't think we can get through these times without grace. And part of that grace is in the compassion of knowing that we all have stories. And there's a piece with the whole uncertain times. The hardest point is when you're in the middle. And you can look back and we've had a whole year, and then looking to the horizon, we can't quite see that horizon yet. And just going, what are those 5 steps? Acknowledging that right now the middle's really hard. Acknowledge that Zoom drains us and has a lot of things with that. And I think that's about. Oh, I did have one quote I wanted to share. I love this Jim Collins quote, where uncertainty is chronic, instability is permanent, and disruption is common, and we can't predict or govern events. And that's why we tend to be looking at systems, but just know that right now you are in the middle. Practice the self-care piece, and try to set some boundaries for yourself. And Greg, do you have thoughts and then we can open up for questions?
You mentioned fatigue and Zoom fatigue, and there was a really good link in the chat, and I pulled that link up on my screen. And I just, maybe I'll just kind of talk about they talk about 4 causes of Zoom fatigue, and they're simple fixes. So just the one is excessive amounts of close-up eye contact is highly intense. And sometimes when I'm working on my computer, I'll put on these glasses, and they help to kind of keep the I don't know what they are, but they work really well by keeping the rays from the screen of the monitors off my eyes. The other one is seeing yourself during video chats constantly in real time is fatiguing. And that's true. And I think by this point, we've learned, just by doing that, turning off your video is okay. It's totally okay. And I encourage you to do that if you get involved in a lot of Zoom meetings. Video chats dramatically reduce our usual mobility. Yeah, I haven't yet read this section, but let's see if I can really quickly look into that. Oh, I see what they're saying. Yeah, I get stuck in my chair. You don't know it, but I'm sitting down, and I don't have a stand-up desk. I had one at my office, but I didn't get one here because I didn't know how long I'd be doing this. But I do like walking around. When I talk, I love walking around, and I cannot do that here. So that's a challenge. And then the 4th one is the cognitive load is much higher in a video chat. And that is very true. We tend to be, consider this a meeting. And if you were to be put into a meeting in a room, all of us together, it would be very different. You could more easily tune out. But in a video Zoom, you can't really tune out. You are on the whole time. And so that is fatiguing as well.
I'd like to add just one quick slide here, and it's kind of it's fundamental to how I show up. I've been blessed to be part of an international group and to work directly with a woman named Margaret Wheatley. And we this is her work, the Warriors for the Human Spirit, and we are taking this nationally to pilot the program with, though she has done a lot of the work on her own. But if you can look, we need leaders who recognize the harm being done to people and the planet through dominant practices that control, ignore, abuse, and oppress the human spirit. We need leaders who put service over self, stand steadfast in crisis and failures, and who display unshakable faith that people can be generous, creative, and kind. Warriors for the Human Spirit are awake human beings that have chosen not to flee. They abide. They serve as beacons of an ancient story that tells the goodness and generosity and creativity of humanity, and you can identify them by their cheerfulness. You will know them by their compassion, and when asked how they do it, they'll tell you about discipline, dedication, and the necessity of community. A warrior is a person who has the courage to face the dark forces threatening our world and to grieve for what is being lost, especially for the future generations. Their insight into the present world situation energizes, deepens compassion for those suffering from oppression, and motivates them to live in a way which brings them peace into each situation they encounter. They are strengthened by camaraderie with their fellow warriors. And I just invite all of you to put your warrior shield on and go out into the world and continue to abide. And
Well,
thank you.
well, thank you, Kathy. And Dr. Price, I want to make sure you get if you have any closing remarks really quickly, if you want to do that as well.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone for being here today. And, this topic of uncertainty and leadership is one that we could do for a very long time, and we could focus in a lot of different ways. But I appreciate all of the comments in the chat. I appreciate Kathy's comments. And Kathy, there was actually a comment in the chat area. Somebody wanted to know the source.
I just added it. Thank you.
Got it. Okay, very good. But thank you, everyone. Appreciate this very much.
All right, folks. Let's thank our special speakers for sure. And then I want to thank you all for joining us this morning. Just a few quick highlights, closing remarks. Today at noon, March 2nd, that's today, we have the Snohomish STEM Summit. So if you're free, please join us for that. If you haven't already registered, you can still do so, I believe. Katie, if you can provide that info, that would be great. And then next week's Coffee Chats on Tuesday, March 9th at 8:30 again, and we'll be centered around transportation and infrastructure. And I know a lot of you know that is a primary focus in our region and county. So I thank Kathy and I thank Dr. Price for an amazingly intuitive and focused message today. And I want to thank all of you for joining. Have an amazing day from Economic Alliance, Snohomish County. Thank you all.